September 11th, 2001. You will remember this day as long as you live.
We have a breaking news story to tell you about. Apparently, a plane has just crashed into the World Trade Center here in New York City. It happened just a few moments ago.
That is the World Trade Center, and we have unconfirmed reports this morning that a plane has crashed into one of the towers of the World Trade Center.
We just got a report in that there's been some sort of explosion at the World Trade Center in New York City. One report said, and we can't confirm any of this.
It's easy to look at some of the greatest tragedies in American history and remember them only for the damage they caused or the lives they took. It's easy to look at Pearl Harbor and see its upside as a catalyst for the U.S. entering World War II. It's even easier for many to equate the aftermath of 9/11 with a renewed sense of American spirit, and to remember the heroes of 9/11 as only the firefighters, police, and volunteers who gave their time and sacrificed their safety to save others. However, some heroes remain unrecognized for their brave acts of self-sacrifice. These people didn't need a badge for their actions because just like all other heroes, they did it for the common good. The passengers of United Flight 93 may be some of the greatest unsung heroes of American history, and their actions stand as a true testament to the good that people can do when faced with a massive moral decision.
At 8:41 a.m. on September 11, 2001, United Airlines Flight 93 took off from Newark International Airport en route to San Francisco. It would never reach its destination. The plane carried around 45 people who, unbeknownst to them, were about to change the course of American history forever. The flight was delayed from its original 8 o'clock departure time, and it is possible that if the plane had taken off on time, the day's events could have played out differently. At 8:19 a.m., flight attendants aboard United Flight 11 notified ground control that the plane had been hijacked. The FBI was alerted shortly after. By this time, ground control was on high alert and watching for any further news regarding possible terrorist activity on any other active flights. It is unknown why United did not further delay or cancel the departure of Flight 93. Nevertheless, Flight 93 progressed onto its route to San Francisco. At 9:29 a.m., 4 hijackers took over the plane. Led by Ziad Jarrah, they killed the pilot and co-pilot and threatened the passengers with a non-existent bomb on board. The passengers pretended to submit, but meanwhile made plans to retake the plane. At around 10 o'clock, Lisa Jefferson, the supervisor of the Verizon Airphone call center in Oak Brook, Illinois, received word that 2 planes had crashed into the Twin Towers of the World Trade Center in New York. At the time, she knew nothing else of the situation beyond a vague description of the events, but she had little time to be filled in, as shortly thereafter, she was called over by a representative who said that she had a man on the line, calling from another United Airlines flight that had been overtaken by hijackers. Lisa took over the call from the representative and began to speak to the man on the other end. She learned his name was Todd Beamer, a salesman from Cranberry, New Jersey. She recalled him as being incredibly calm and collected as he recounted the flight's events. Todd informed Jefferson that the passengers of the plane were planning to rush the cockpit of the plane and attempt to retake control. It is unknown if they believed that they could land the plane safely, but when Lisa Jefferson asked Todd if he wanted to be patched through to his wife, he requested to stay on the line, adding that he didn't want to send the call to his wife unless he absolutely had to, possibly because he still believed that everything would be fine and he simply didn't want to worry about his family. This sentiment would not last long.
Todd was also in the dark regarding the other 2 planes, and if he had known more, he might have simply asked to speak to his wife. Regardless, he remained on the line with Lisa Jefferson. She was aware of the possibility that the hijackers planned to crash the plane, but in an effort to preserve his calm attitude, she never relayed the information to Todd.
Because I wanted him to have hope. I wanted him to think that he still had a chance. I didn't want him to feel like it was just totally hopeless and he definitely didn't have a choice and he knew he was going to die. I didn't want him to have that feeling.
Throughout the call, the plane dipped and rose several times, leading Todd to relay that the plane was about to go down several times to Jefferson. At that time, Todd asked Lisa to pray with him, but when he asked her to pray, he called her by her first name, Lisa. She was taken aback by this, as when she had picked up the call, she had answered as Mrs. Jefferson. When she asked Todd how he knew her name, he explained that Lisa was also the name of his wife, and that he had called her wife's name accidentally. As the plane shook, Todd gave her his wife's phone number, asking her to call his wife if anything should happen in their attempt to retake the plane. It was that moment of unlikely connection between two people in an incredibly unfortunate situation that fueled their prayer together as Todd and the rest of the passengers of United Flight 93 prepared an attempt to take back and hopefully land the plane, or die trying.
Right now, just because of the world situation about faith and about, turning to God, but that wasn't something Todd turned to at the last minute because he didn't know what else to do. He really tried every day to make decisions that would lead him closer to God and closer to what God wanted for him.
Just then, the plane took another large dip, and Todd backed away from the phone. All Lisa could hear were the famous last words of Todd Beamer that would go down in history. The hijackers pitched the plane left and right and tilted the nose up and down in an effort to block the passengers from reaching the cockpit. The passengers were making an incredible effort to take back control of the plane. At one point, the only barrier between the passengers and the hijackers was the cockpit door. When the hijackers realized that the door was close to breaking down, they realized they would not reach their final destination. Not yet ready to be captured or fail their mission, they nosedived towards the ground. At 10:07 a.m., United Flight 93 crashed into a field in Somerset County, Pennsylvania. There were no survivors.
Of course, Todd's story is just one of many that were on board United Flight 93. He is simply the most well-documented passenger, but it is important to remember that there were several other heroes on that plane, such as Wanda Anita Green, one of United Airlines' first African-American flight attendants, and Leroy Homer, who had served his country in Desert Storm and Operation Desert Shield, even flying humanitarian missions to help citizens of Somalia. Like the other attacks, it can be assumed that Flight 93 was intended to hit a major national landmark, and based on the flight's direction, it can be assumed that the White House or the Capitol building were the targets. The passengers' heroic actions and selfless determination prevented further casualties on September 11th. Knowing that their chances of survival were already slim, the heroes of Flight 93 took back the plane, forgetting their personal troubles to help others. The passengers would rather have died knowing they prevented the deaths of even more innocents than stay in their seats, contact loved ones, and wait for the end, whether good or bad.
The legacy of Flight 93 has managed to outlast the initial sorrow for the loss of its passengers. Lisa Beamer went on to write a book entitled Let's Roll that reflected on her experience of September 11th. Additionally, a feature film entitled United 93 was released in 2006 that dramatized the flight's events. Lisa Jefferson continued to do major interviews as well as releasing a book herself. Both she and Lisa Beamer have returned to their lives, put the day's events behind them, and attempted to move on with the future, not unlike most American citizens in the days, months, and years after the attacks. Following 9/11, a plethora of new safety precautions were put in place for major flights, and it acts as a stark reminder of how difficult it is for major change to take place without first being preceded by extreme tragedy. In addition, the Department of Homeland Security was founded to protect the American people directly following the September 11th attacks. The story of Todd Beamer and the passengers of United Flight 93 continues to represent some of the greatest unsung American heroes. In the face of one of the greatest tragedies in American history, 45 people came together to do something greater than themselves, just like the millions of people who came together to mend hearts and minds in the aftermath of the September 11th attacks.